What we are is a classical group that utilizes a now almost 100-year-old instrument called a theremin. For those folks who aren't familiar with this instrument, I'm going to give you a brief history and demonstration before we begin the concert. I'm sure there are many Tesla fans here in the audience tonight. And I'm sure that there also have been and will be throughout this conference many discussions about frequencies and vibrations. Tesla's contributions to the world are vast and numerous, but the one I'd like to focus on for a moment was his oscillator. When he created the oscillator, he went on and moved on to, let's say, bigger and better things, and left the oscillator for many other scientists and physicists to advance in the fields that they were going to use it for, that we use so commonly today. A young physicist from Russia named Lev Terman, in English it's Leon Theremin, he was fascinated by Tesla's oscillator, and he had the brilliant idea to try to use it to make music. Think about that for a moment. He was the very first person in the world to think to use electricity to make music. And instantly, this was rejected. Everyone said, no, you can't make music with electricity. Music is strings, it's vibrations, it's frequencies. You can't use electricity to recreate that. So he set out to go and prove them wrong. Using two oscillators in a two-circuit, one fixed, one sliding in and out, he created what he called a parameter alarm. It later went on to be called a burglar alarm. In Russia, they had a huge prison problem, and they couldn't figure out how to contain their prisoners in a safe way, where they couldn't figure a way when they were trying to escape to make an alarm go off. So he set up 4 antennas around each other with a zero beat through the oscillators. And what that meant was, whenever anyone, let's say a human being, who carries a capacitance, comes into this magnetic field, it will trigger the circuits to complete, therefore making a low vibration. The person's capacitance, as they approach the antenna, would make the frequency go higher. I'll show you a demonstration. There'd be no escaping the Russian gulags with this. So impressed were Russian officials that they gave him a lot of money to continue to research the concepts of using electricity to make music. He was a trained cellist as well as a physicist, so he realized that somewhere in the middle of that giant slide of tones, there was actually musical notes. Some of you might ask, well, how could that be? How could there be a musical note in that big slide of sound I just heard? Well, musical notes are vibrations of frequencies and air molecules. So, if you can use electricity to vibrate air molecules to the corresponding frequency of the note, you can play a C. Again, I will demonstrate. When he realized that there was musical notes within this parameter of the slide of his alarm, the next question was, well, how do we separate those musical notes from all the other, let's say, uglier sounds that go with it? So he created a second antenna at an angle in a loop that crosses the field of the first antenna, so that as one hand goes closer to the antenna, it will go higher in pitch. The other antenna does the exact opposite. As the hand goes closer to the antenna, it will get softer in sound. As it goes further away from the antenna, it gets louder in sound. Patting your head, rubbing your belly kind of an affair. He then created an instrument he named after himself, and he called it the theremin. The theremin was the very first electronic instrument ever made, and remains today, almost 100 years later, the only instrument in the world that you play without touching. But it's more than just not touching. You don't see anything. You don't feel anything. The air in front of me is no different than the air in front of you, except I'm vibrating it with my hands and my capacity within an electromagnetic field to create a musical note. With practice and skill, you can eventually learn to pluck just the notes you want out of thin air and ignore all the other frequencies. You must do this without the aid of any visual help whatsoever. You have nowhere to look to see where your note is. And you have nothing to feel to see how it feels, that tactile feeling, to guide you in your playing. He then took this instrument before the Russian government, and so impressed were they that they granted him license to show the world how advanced Russia has gone in the field of electricity and music making. And he set out to tour the world with his theremin, giving demonstrations France, Italy, New York, and Philadelphia. People were amazed at his instrument, and of course, it was filling out houses and selling out shows everywhere he went. He later started to continue to develop these ideas and create other musical instruments. But he was a physicist and a scientist, so he also created a few other devices. He was only staying in America through the grace of his government, but he didn't want to go back home. Gee, I wonder why. He decided to try to stay in New York, and in order to fund himself, he created a little device for our government called the Bug, which was a listening device. He felt there was no harm in creating this technology and giving it to them to further their advancement in their craft, while he went back and focused and used the funding for music. Well, the KGB did not like this. Essentially, he was making espionage equipment for the opposite side. And in the middle of the night, Leon Theremin disappeared from his brownstone in New York. An obituary was printed in his paper, was spread throughout the world, and he was presumed dead for the next 45 years. Until he reemerged and said to the world, "I did not die. What happened was, in the middle of the night, some men came in, put a black hood over my head, took me at gunpoint back to Russia, threw him into a one-room prison laboratory where he did not leave for 45 years. By that point, the legacy of his instrument had been forgotten. RCA had manufactured a bunch, but no one really knew how to play them. A few people did, like the legendary Clara Rockmore and Lucy Bigelow Rosen, but the majority of people were pretty baffled by how to make music on this instrument. As if that wasn't bad enough, as they started to fall into disrepair, no one had an idea how to fix them. And presuming that the inventor was dead, they just kind of sat around the world and fell apart. There was 500 of them made by RCA. Several years later, a couple people started to get them to work, including Robert Moog, the inventor of the synthesizer, also the creator of the particular instrument I'm going to perform on tonight. These instruments went back into circulation for the public, but again, no one really knew how to play them. So they became regulated to sound effects in science fiction movies. Everything from Alfred Hitchcock's Spellbound to Billy Wilder's The Lost Weekend, you could hear the theremin whenever they needed to represent something otherworldly. Alien, dipsomania, mental illness, maybe even drunkenness. The theremin was the go-to sound effect when you were watching Scooby-Doo and the ghost left the castle, or the spaceship landed. And for years, that's all people thought a theremin could do. The next time somebody decided to play some real music on the theremin was Brian Wilson for the Beach Boys, who made the hit Good Vibrations with 4 notes. And to this day, when I mention to people that I play the world's only electronic instrument, it's been around for 100 years, and I run down its list of history and brilliant achievements, no one knows what I'm talking about. The minute I say, you know, the thing that goes woo, 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 and good Beach Boys, good vibrations, everybody gets it. So for those folks who didn't know what I was talking about, just check your Beach Boys song and you'll have a good reference to how this became back into being a musical instrument. After that, it still continued to flourish as a sound effect device in science fiction movies until we come to 2010, when I decided to take my theremin playing before the public, assemble my ensemble, and for the first time since the 20s and 30s, bring before the world the fact that this is a very serious instrument meant to be performed, meant to have classical music performed on it. And very few people in the world are doing that anymore. So our mission is to go before audiences everywhere, performing beautiful music and showing them what the sound of electricity singing is really like. I'm going to give you a brief demonstration before we begin our concert. The point of our concert is to play beautiful music we've chosen based on what we feel is moving, and put the theremin out in the front as a lead singer so that you'll have a chance tonight to hear me sing everything from opera to science fiction songs from movies, to contemporary love songs, all just using my hands and the thin air in front of me. The example I'd like to give you before we start this concert is an opera aria by Rimsky-Korsakov. It's known as Oriental Romance, and I'll give you a brief demonstration of how unwieldy this instrument is before I rein it in and begin.
What happened to theremin after 45 years?
At that point, he was so old, they made a movie called Theremin: An Electronic Odyssey, and he died right after that movie. He had the chance to tell his story to the world one more time.
So he's in that movie.
He's in that movie, Theremin: An Electronic Odyssey. Brilliant, brilliant documentary about him and the nature of this instrument. Play a theremin, you must remain perfectly still, because I'm in an 8 by 8 electromagnetic field. And everything I do, including breathing, will affect it. perform a few pieces of our selection. We'd like to start off tonight with a piece by Jan Tiersen. This is called La Volange. In case you might recognize this next one.
1870?
Anybody got a call out? Anybody know what that one was?
Love story.
For those folks who have seen us before, you might be noticing a member's absent up here tonight. Our violinist is very sick in the hospital and will be away from us for some time, being diagnosed with her disease. And we would like to take a moment to dedicate the show to her. And of course, we didn't want to cancel the performance or leave Mark in a lurch, so we decided to come in and bring in someone to fill in for her, and performing for her tonight, of course, is Frances Bryson, sitting in the violin. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Julie Myers. classical group. People ask me all the time, you guys play all the classics? I say, sure. Beethoven, Mozart, Rush.
Rush plays that.
I'd like to introduce to you on harp, Professor Gloria Galante. obscure theme to an obscure horror movie by Dario Argento. Any horror fans in the audience? There's an Argento fan. I doubt you'll recognize this one. I didn't even realize this when I put the set list together, but we'll go from the horror movie of Dario Argento to a Disney film. to introduce to you folks the members of the Divine Hand Ensemble on harp, Gloria Galante. On harp, Mary Bryson. On percussion, Randy Rudolph. On guitar, Daniel Whitehall. Our cellist and arranger, John Samuel. On viola, John L. Lawrence. On violin, Francis Bryson. Violin and vocals, Julie Myers. We'd like to end our concert this evening with a piece by Beethoven. divinehand.net.
Ghostbusters.
Unfortunately, we can't play Ghostbusters tonight, but you can find us playing that online. We will leave you with something we think that's a little bit more appropriate for the convention. Is your suggestion?
Inagata Davida.
Got it. I don't know, Randy, you got that one? We will leave you with something we think is a little bit more appropriate for the theme of the convention that you folks are going to attend to. This is for everyone out there who has an open mind. Questions?
What was the name of the first song?
The very first song we performed tonight, La Boulange by Jan Tiersen, the man who wrote the music to Amelie.
Oh, thank you.
Was that Suspiria by Dario Argento?
No, good guess though. Go about 6 years later to Opera, 1981. Good guess though. No one ever gets any Argento references.
What was Beethoven's? What piece was
That was the Allegretto from Symphony Number 7 with a vocal opera aria that I was performing on top of it called Filio Perduto. You guys might know that song from the King's Speech. That made that song a little bit more popular amongst the masses. But Beethoven Symphony 7, Movement Number 2. Any other questions? Yes?